Hello everyone, this is Jeevakan. In today's video, we'll discuss about three stocks which I invested for the long term. So we look at why I invested in these stocks in the first place. So let's get started. So I invested in these stocks for the long term. So first let's understand the difference between short term and long term. Short term means trading. Obviously I'll be holding the trade for few days to few weeks. Classic example for short term trading is the trade which I took in HDFC Bank. If you haven't watched the video, you can watch the video here or here maybe. And these three stocks I purely invested for the long term. So what is long term? Long term means obviously investments which I'll be holding it for 3 years to 4 years at least. So if you are looking to trade in these stocks, obviously it's a big no, because I trust in these businesses in the first place and I believe that these businesses would outperform in the next few years. So that's the main reason I invested in these stocks. So without any delay, we'll just look at what are these stocks and why I invested in these at that particular levels. The first stock which we'll be looking at is Jubilant Food. So what does Jubilant Food do? It holds franchises for Domino's Pizza and Dunkin' Donuts. Let's look at it from the technical and fundamental perspective. Technically, the stock had a huge correction of almost 45%. That's a huge correction. Currently, it is sitting at 0.618 Fibonacci level, which is pretty good. So 2600 levels is where I accumulated it. So this is a place where we should become greedy, guys, because a famous quote by Warren Buffett which says that be greedy when everyone is fearful and be fearful when everyone is greedy. So this is the zone where everyone is fearful and selling their shares. So that's when people like us should try to get in and buy these good stocks at a discount. Looking at it from the fundamental perspective, first point is 5-year median PE is greater than the current PE. The current PE is 86 and the median PE of last 5 years, which is 105. So the current PE is less than the median PE, which is actually good. The dividend payout is healthy. It is increasing steadily. That's a good sign. Lastly, looking at the net profit, for every quarter, the profits have been increasing steadily. There was a small dip during COVID-19, but it started increasing again. Important point here is that the profits are increasing, but technically the chart looks really weak, which means that the chart has a lot to catch up in the upcoming days. So these are the reasons I invested in Jubilant Food at 2600 levels. The second stock is Asian Paints. Asian Paints touched an important support line and it had a sharp recovery. Technically, there's not much to talk about Asian Paints, guys, because it was driven by news, to be honest, in the recent times. Hike in crude oil prices affected Asian Paints because it had a major hit because of its raw material. Because manufacture of paint requires more than 300 items, mostly being petroleum based. So one of the main raw material is petroleum. Fundamentally, the stock looks good. Debt-free company, solid dividend payout, and one of the best among its peers. One of the giant in the paint industry. Profits are stable and steady. I feel that the demand for paint industry would be really high because of urbanization and more concrete buildings would be built in the near future and paint would be the mandatory entity needed for these buildings. And adding on to that, the repainting duration for any buildings would literally be 5 to 10 years. So obviously the paint would be in demand often, and being a blue chip stock and one of the giant in the paint industry, obviously Asian Paints would give you not massive, at least decent returns in the upcoming years. And the last stock which we will be looking at is MTAR. MTAR works in manufacturing products like nuclear, space, defense, and also works in clean energy. I'll tell you where I entered in this stock. It's an interesting story. I entered here around 1200 to 1300 levels and sold around 1900 levels, thinking that it might be overvalued. But to my surprise, exactly after the day I sold it, it moved up 15% in a single day. It hurts pretty badly when something like that happens immediately after you exit that stock. It went all the way up to 2600 levels and I felt like I missed the stock. And because of the war crisis, it is available below the price where I sold previously. And without any second thoughts, I accumulated 1700 to 1800 levels now. Right now, the stock is consolidating after a huge up move. It might take some time to move up. This stock is quite a risky bet, but the returns would also be massive. It's high risk, high reward investment. So fundamentally the stock is debt free and has a solid dividend payout like the other two. PE ratio is 92, but it is decent compared with its peers.
Market cap is 5,000 crores, which means if company performs well, the upside potential is really high. Net profit also looks solid in the last 3 years because it has been rapidly growing. Finally guys, I just want to discuss about position sizing because I'm getting many messages regarding stock recommendations. The important fact is that I have invested only just 3% of my overall portfolio in these 3 stocks, which is Asian Paints, MTAR and Jubilant Food. Which means that if these stocks falls and crashes due to some news, I have more breathing space to book these losses and move to another stock. And most importantly, my mindset would not be affected even though these stocks did not perform the way I expected it to, because I am positioned lightly. It's not about which stock we are going to buy, it's all about how much you are going to buy. So that's the key here. So always invest money which you could afford to risk, and invest at your own risk and do your own analysis before investing in any company. There's a saying that don't put all your eggs in one basket, which means that don't put all your money in one stock, diversify and invest in different sectors.
So these are the 3 stocks which I invested guys. Obviously it's for the long term. Obviously these stocks have great businesses and I believe these stocks would do pretty well in the upcoming years. It's not about buying a good stock, it's all about buying a good stock at a good level. So that's the main reason I bought these stocks at these lower levels. So buying a stock at discount is always a good value for money. Finally, disclaimer guys, invest at your own risk. This is not a stock recommendation. I've just suggested my view on why I invested in these stocks. This is purely for educational purpose. Thank you so much for watching the video. So we'll be coming up with some exciting content in the upcoming videos. Signing off until next time. Cheers.